Hi, welcome back to TrueSight episode 5. I'm joined here today by your name.
Oh, Bwipo.
Yeah, of course. So if we can go ahead and get into the first slide. So we're discussing a little bit of your early career. So
Okay.
I have a quote from one of your first interviews you've ever done. You said,
Okay.
I started playing in the top lane because of the champions that are played there. I didn't main top because I wanted to play top. I wanted to play Gangplank, I wanted to play Darius, I wanted to play Hecarim. And those were the top lane champions at the time. So now here we are about 6 years later and you're still playing top lane. So what has kept you playing that role even though, according to yourself, you didn't initially want to play that role?
I guess I got pretty good at it. But also, like, a lot of the time I suggested role swapping. A lot of teams are, like, pretty... Like, they're not convinced by, like, role swapping, the idea of role swapping. So a lot of times where I suggested I should role swap, a lot of teams are like, nah, we'd rather just keep playing top lane because we know what that looks like. So yeah, that's the both reasons. Because I role swapped in jungle in 2021 in summer. But, like, for example, I talked about role swapping at the end of 2019. I remember I told my staff, like, if you know me, Rekkles, Hylli, Nemesis, like, you put me jungle, I'm gonna make a montage, like, well, not like that, but like kind of like that, you know, like we're gonna absolutely piss on everything.
Yeah.
Like, we're for sure gonna be chilling. Just need to find a top laner, but they were like, nah, you should just play top lane, and they got Selfmade, which, to be fair, he was a really good player, so it wasn't a bad idea. Just like, I'm also convinced that if I jungled with pretty much any top laner, that roster would be absolutely nuts too. So
I mean, as you said earlier, it was mostly like the apprehension of teams. If there wasn't that level of apprehension and you had more freedom, what role do you think you'd be playing? Would it still be top? Or is it like a role you've always preferred more?
I would be swapping it all the time. Like, I would be swapping it based on the offers and teams that I get. That's how I always looked at it. I always considered myself capable of playing multiple roles. So the only role I don't feel comfortable playing competitively is support, because I don't feel for it. But I feel like I would just look at this, like, I would just look at the strength of the team and just be like, okay, well, you know, if there's a really good player free agent, like, for example, like Nemesis free agent, right? I rate Nemesis super highly, so I wouldn't want to play mid lane on a team that Nemesis could be interested in joining. So I automatically wouldn't play mid if I could have Nemesis join my team, right? For example, if Rekkles would be free agent, I wouldn't want to play AD because I could get Rekkles on my team, right? So that leaves jungle and top. So I just look at the options in jungle and top and see, like, okay, so who's the stronger top laner, who's the weaker, and, like, is there a promising rookie? Is there someone that I know, someone that wants to work with me? So, like, for example, right now I think Serdi's really, really strong. I actually like him a lot, and, you know, if we were looking, like, I would automatically slot him in as my top laner and play a different role if I were to be a GM and I had to make roster changes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I mean, talking about your early career as well, you played on a Turkish team. And usually it's like a sorry to hear that whenever that's mentioned, but that Turkish team is notorious for a lot of big players. Like Caps went through that same team. You had a couple other famous like LEC teams. So I mean, you spent a month on that Turkish team. So kind of run me through your experience really quickly, because I feel like that was right before you promoted to Tier 1. So what was that experience like?
I mean, honestly, it was, I sat in an apartment building and played League of Legends all day, so I liked it, you know. I spent a month doing that. But the reason I smiled is because I got benched after a month. So it wasn't like it wasn't like Caps and Xerxes, for example. They won the TCL. I was like 6th place and we got benched. So it's a bit different, considering, like, I joined when that team went downhill. Maybe it was my bad. I don't know. I tried my best.
We can never know.
I tried my best.
What's in the past is in the past. We can go to the next slide. So now we're going to be talking about an interesting fact I realized. So despite only playing Tier 1 since 2018, you only have 9 less official interviews than Bjergsen, who's been playing since 2013.
There you go.
So
I guess I talk a lot.
You played 5 less years, and you're only 9 interviews behind. You could beat that, like, in the next year. So that was, like, really interesting. Is there, like, a reason you like interviewing so much?
I mean, it's pretty simple. I've always considered making content as part of the job. I don't think it's something that, like, you know, I want to make sure that people watching enjoy themselves. So I like, I guess I just like making sure that my fans know what's going on. Like, that's really important to me, because, like, even if you don't explicitly explain what's happening, you can explain what's going on, where you're at, you know, how you feel about your team, what's going, like, you know, stuff like that. So I enjoy that a lot about my career. I really want people that support me and my team to feel good about it. And I think that communication is really important for that. I think in any kind of relationship, communication is really important. And I find that a lot of professional players don't have following because they don't communicate, right? Like, they don't speak to their fans. They don't let people know what's going on, how they feel. And I think I do a good job of that not because like I just think it's important. Like the fact that I value it and find it important made me accrue the skills I needed to be comfortable in interviews. And as a result, I interview a lot because I don't really make content outside of that. So I stream very irregularly, for example, especially in Fnatic. I almost never streamed. That's why like it's really important to me when I make content that it's like aimed towards the fans and what they enjoy. So for example, when I stream, I go out of my way to explain what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, etc. because I want to make sure it's high quality content that people want to consume.
So, as you mentioned earlier, you feel like content is part of the job. Do you feel like the current NA pros are lazy, or like what do you think is the main thing that leads to this difference? Because, like you said, you view it as part of the job, but I feel like most other pros don't. So, what is the reasoning, do you think, for that?
I don't know. You know, I'm not sure. I think a lot of people misunderstand professional League of Legends. I'm a simple person. I don't get paid to play. I get paid to win and entertain. A lot of pros think like just showing up and playing is good enough. It's not.
That's pretty deep, actually.
Well, it's not that deep. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple.
As a baseline, that as a product is what you deliver to your team, right? You deliver wins and you deliver content.
Yeah, because the content leads to fans. So
exactly. So either fans consume your content because they like it, they like your personality, they like what you talk about, they like whatever, or they like you because you win. And in every sport, winning is fun. Like people like winning.
I feel like if anything, like sometimes having a lot of fans can make losing easier, and it can also make winning feel so much better because you have these people like cheering on you. Like I feel like throughout your career you've had a lot of highs and you also had a few lows, but I feel like you have a lot of fans, so it's probably helped remedy some of the blows you've dealt with throughout your career.
They can also be extra brutal. So
they could be. I mean,
it's a double-edged sword, and don't get me wrong. I think my community is really nice, and I think for the most part people are pretty honest about me, and I like that about my community. I think that's because I try to be honest in my interviews. Like I think a lot of the people that stick around, they get that. For me, honesty and when it comes to being a professional player, being honest about what's going on is really important to me. Like I don't like pretending like, oh yeah, we're gonna win, it's gonna be great. Meanwhile, you're getting shit on in scrims. That's not my style. It's like if there's something going on in the team, I want people to know outside of it, the people that support the team. So that's really important to me. So, I think the people that follow me are generally also they like it. They like hearing what's going on instead of like having a set standard of communication, because I feel like between PR and I guess laziness, I think that's where the biggest disconnect happens between pro players and fans, where pros that are trying to be nice don't know how to put it because they aren't PR trained, so they end up sending no message at all.
Yeah, I can see that for sure, especially after like losses or like after like a rough spell, because when you're winning, everything's easy to be like, yeah, we're winning, let's keep it up. But I think PR training is important in like those tougher moments that take a lot more courage to speak up. And because I mean, you're a veteran at this point. I mean, I did like a quick like search of your page. You've always been someone who's like vocal about how you're feeling, whether it's like winning, losing, whatever it may be going on. Like you're always vocal about it. I think, like you said, a lot of fans can appreciate the genuineness and like the kind of one-on-one connection they're able to receive from seeing the vulnerability of And even the recent interview you did on LCS, you opened up about mental struggles. And if we go back 8 months to your interview with Donjik, you talk about ADHD as well. So I think having a lot of these like open discussions in a way humanizes you as well, and it helps you connect with like people who might be going to like similar things at home. So I think it's like really important to have conversations about that.
I agree.
So if we can go to the next slide. Next thing we'll be talking about is slightly later, but still early on in your career. So after Dark Passage and the benching there, you went to Fnatic, and at this point you were like technically a substitute. There was 2 contracted top laners, you and Soaz, and so you're on this like roster. You win your first ever split, which it's a pretty big feat. A lot of people like everyone's aiming to win every split they play in, but like to win your first split right off the bat, that had to be like a huge ego boost. No?
Oh, not really. I think I was. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I got an ego boost from playing that split because I scrimmed the whole split and I had a feel of how strong people were individually as top laners. So I was pretty confident I could be the best. Like I remember doing an interview after we won and I said that I'd be the best top laner in Europe, and everyone hated on that because I was too cocky. But I didn't care because I knew I would be. I think I managed to do that split, but with my experience, I've realized that being a very stable and like having a very stable team where you don't need to do more than your share of the work. You know what I mean? Like in any workplace, if you know you have to do more than your share of the work for the project to succeed, you're gonna fuck up and it's gonna be tougher on you.
Yeah, the pressure.
It's way harder to perform. But if you know that like you doing just what you agreed to do, or like what's just like normal for your role, it's really easy to accomplish that. And I think a lot of people underestimate that about competitive league, where in 2018 it was like hard to say like who was the best top laner? Like I don't know. Was it me? Was it Wunder? I don't know. Was it Alfari? I don't know. Right? Like, it's hard to say. But in 2019, for example, I think it was pretty clearly Wunder, and I think that's honestly a big part of it, right? And if you think about like most teams that have like the best top laner, like Keen is considered the best top laner in the world right now together with Bin, right? And you look at those teams, they're like, oh, those guys almost never have to do an exceptional amount. They deliver a consistent product, and then they can build on that. So, and they can do more when the opportunity arises for them. But when they don't, it's not like their team collapses without them. That's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
And I think having that like kind of peace of mind that you can just play your game, you don't need to do anything special, helps a lot. So early on in my career, I had the privilege of being in the best team in Europe. I didn't have to do much. I just had to, pick my little tank, farm my creeps, walk around and get a free win. So it was really easy to win the first split because I felt like the responsibility that I had was just don't lose the game and you're going to win. And that's basically what happened. So I don't really consider 2018 spring as a win for me, as in like, it's not a title I earned. It's a title that I
Received almost?
I mean, it's like it was like any top laner that wanted to win would have won on that team. So
He was just that good.
they were that good.
Yeah. So like in that case, would you say like, because you mentioned like the more you feel pressure to do, that's where like you start messing up. Do you feel like a lot of players who struggle to find the consistency, do you feel like they're overthinking it? Maybe they're trying to do too much?
I think anxiety and stress are the two leading factors for people choking on stage. And I think that not owning up to it is why it stays that way. But a lot of the time, there's people in solo queue that don't, like, they're beasts, and then in scrims they smurf, and then on stage it's just disaster. And it's because of stress and anxiety. And I think that obviously it could be other things too. I wouldn't know what it would be, but I think those are the leading factors from my experience as a professional player. I know for a fact that when I'm stressed and I'm anxious about my performance gets worse. That's just the way it is. It's significantly worse sometimes. Sometimes people watch me play and think, what is he thinking? I can tell you right now, what I'm thinking is I'm scared shitless because of something, or, anxious as hell, or I'm worried about something, or I'm stressed as hell, and that's why I'm not actively thinking. And I'm doing things based on emotion, and sometimes the things you do based on emotion make you look like an idiot.
That is pretty true, especially for top laners. You're on your own island, so I feel like it's really easy. Like if you get like a bad snowball going, like even today, I think BB played like when G2 played against Fnatic. I think like BB died once and then he got ganked a few times and it started looking worse than it actually was. And I mean, I'm sure like to some degree he was in his own head because it's really easy to not be like it's really hard rather to be 0-4, 0-5 and still be like, yeah, we got this, because then you're like, am I the problem? And like I think it's like a whole like can of worms that most players are afraid of. But like you said, if they're open about it, that's when you can start making the progress to embrace it and deal with it.
Yeah, I think that was a really big strength I had working with Hylli. We normalized dying.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Hill is saying like he's no stranger to dying quite a few times.
Like in a way that like he was always like comfortable with dying, and I started being comfortable with just dying, and we spent a lot of time together. 3 months when I was bot laning, like we were day in day out talking to each other. Like we spent like 14 out of the 16 hours we were awake together basically every single day, and that made me like really play around what like his vision of the game was and try to adjust like my way of playing the game to what he looked like, what his looked like. And obviously that showed in the 4 years we played together because we had some pretty damn good results. And I think that's why like it's important to be on a team that's okay with making mistakes, because dying is a mistake, but a bigger mistake is not looking at the opportunity that was created from dying. Because like a lot of times you die and the guy burned flash, right? The question is, can we do something about that? Because in League of Legends, the game is a lot about who has the latest advantage usually is winning. So like, for example, in a laning phase especially, if you kill me in lane and you use flash and I have flash, and then I kill you in lane and flash on you, then you're up. I have the advantage usually, because later in the game there are It's not always that way, but early game advantages are easier to overcome because of items.
And like tempo.
Well, tempo, I don't like using that word in interviews actually, because
really?
tempo is a really complicated term that doesn't actually have a clear definition. So
Really?
if you look up the definition of tempo, it doesn't exist. It doesn't really exist. There's no clear agreement on what tempo is in video games. So I don't like using the word tempo. Now, for me, I use tempo simply as the person that has the opportunity to make the first move proactively.
Yeah, it's like if you like TP back or
at no cost.
Yeah.
That's what I consider. So if you TP back and you push out the wave, you have tempo because there's no drawback to you making the first move. But again, that isn't a precise definition. And if you ask someone that doesn't have as strong as an opinion on what tempo is, they might not give you such an answer. And that's why I don't like using the word, because depending on which pro you ask, it means different things.
Yeah.
Depending on which game you play, it means different things. And yet people use the same word.
Yeah, so it's almost like it kind of waters down like the meaning of like the actual word to
Basically it's just like for a fan that like doesn't really know exactly what it means, they can misunderstand the meaning of the idea very quickly, because it's like a very feeling based term. People, in my opinion, it's like tempo can mean different things, right? Like a support having tempo is obviously different from a top laner having tempo. Why? Because the urgency of you making a play is different as well. So it's just like there's a lot of nuanced factors within the word tempo, which is why I don't like using it in interviews, because it's not an easy term to understand.
It's convoluted, yeah.
But it's what people like to use. But yes, it boils down to the idea of what tempo stands for. Yes, it's the idea that if you died first, you're also first out of base.
That
you
is
respawn faster in early game, so you lose less creeps, which is another reason why dying later in the game is more detrimental for your game. So that's why we want to look at that, and Hylli was really big on that. It's like that guy used the spell cooldown, we should look to punish him. We can't just let him use the spell cooldown, kill one of our teammates, and then not talk about that, make a plan around it. Xayah has a 140-second ult cooldown in the early game. That was something we all knew. And then 125, and then basically that was the majority of the game, right? 140, 125. And then with Essence Reaver, it was like a specific number. Like I forgot what it was, like 126, I think. Or like with Caulfield's Warhammer, it's 126. With Essence Reaver, it's minus 28. It's like 112.
Quite a bit of mathematics happening behind the scenes.
So like my point is, like in 2018, we were such a good team that we were talking about shit like that. Like we were like, oh, the Xayah ulted, oh, she's level 10, 112 seconds, boom, in the chat. This Xayah doesn't have ult for that long. And if she walks into the river or plays the game before this timer, we are snapping her in half.
I feel like I very rarely see that these days, like to that T. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely. And I think it's like, that's the type of stuff that you can talk about and work on as a professional team when you are, as a whole, everyone has like absolute trust in the way you progress the game. So everyone's laning, and you are making progress naturally by stealing enemy camps, by taking plates, back then there weren't plates, but my point is by squeezing advantages one versus one, or you are having absolute faith that whilst you're not pushing advantages, you're outscaling them because you drafted Ornn and Braum and they're playing like Thresh and, I don't know, Gnar, right? So you're outscaling them. So if you're all laning really solid, then you're winning. And that's what we usually did. We used to play like drafts like that where we outscale our opponents. And because we were really strong laners individually, there was no need to have the staff take time to teach us, like, oh, you shouldn't do this in lane, you shouldn't do that in lane. Here, you should base, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to talk about that. So what we're talking about is, like I said, how to maximize profit from when a play happens. And that's when you start timing like specific ultimates, like game-changing ultimates. That's when you start timing specific... summoner spells is normal, but like still like having like making an active game plan when summoner spells are down and being able to adjust your game to that is still another skill entirely. Putting a timer in chat and then abusing someone that doesn't have the spell is still different. Lots of moving pieces there. So some of the things that made our team in 2018 special and really strong, in my opinion.
So we can go to the next slide after that in that case. So we're going to be talking about your IGN of choice. As you can see, in 3 different regions, you view the IGN, I will trade. So what does I will trade mean?
It's pretty simple. When I went to Korea, I wanted a username that would help my teammates understand what I wanted to do. Basically, it's like I had this idea in 2018, and I still do, is like League of Legends is a PvP game. Yeah. I refuse not to PvP with my opponent. If I'm getting outscaled, I still have to PvP him to make sure... Like, if I'm outscaling him, and he's getting outscaled, you still need to PvP to have the best possible condition. You can't just ignore your opponent and let him wail on you. That's not how it works. I believe that fundamentally. So I wanted the simplest way to communicate to my jungler that if they trade sides, because this was back when it was like 2 crab meta with red buff into bot crab.
Yeah.
I just wanted to use a name that my team knows. I'm going to fight no matter what. Like, I don't care where the junglers are. I'm still going to trade because I still fundamentally believe that you can trade proactively with the opposing laner, even when the jungler is there. Like, the idea that the enemy jungler comes out of the bush and pulls out a goddamn Colt and blows your brains out, that doesn't exist that way. He has to interact with you. He has to jump out, use his spells. You have flash, you might have a dash. Like, you don't just they don't point a gun at you and shoot you and you die. That's not how it works. They're not the boogeyman. So I fundamentally believe that one needs to trade and exchange with their opponent in order to progress the game, regardless of whether you're trying to scale or not. Obviously, you need to have the right timings and the right ideas, but you can't ignore your opponent. Very rarely can you ignore your opponent and that being a winning play. So I just wanted a name that conveyed that idea. I will trade, and I was hoping that I will is pretty clear, and I was hoping trading was something that was like the same term. I didn't know. I don't know if that's true, so maybe they read that name and think I'm a stock trader or something.
Yeah.
That would be weird, but I'm hoping it came across, and that was just the idea. I coined it in 2018, and obviously we made it really far in 2018. Yeah. Played the World Finals, so I was also the highest LP on the ladder in my team, and I'm pretty sure of any Western player back then in solo queue.
Do you remember what that LP count was? Because I know Magic Felix like reached some really high highs in solo.
Oh no, I mean that year like Magic Felix wasn't there. I mean like in that boot camp, I hit like 750 or something LP challenger, which like I don't know. Back then it was fucking high, man.
Oh, like, back then it was high. Now it's like 2K is like the norm.
Yeah, I know. So like hitting 1K is the minimum basically. But back then 750. Like I'm pretty sure I was the only Western pro that was 750.
750 is really high back then. It's like top 5 or something.
Oh no, it wasn't that high. It was like that's the funny thing. I remember it being not very high. No, it was like top 150 or something.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't like in terms of like how high it went. I don't remember. I just remember that like, almost no one was even challenger consistently, because the server was like really competitive and obviously like lots of players were playing,
especially Worlds time. Yeah.
So I wasn't really top 5. I was top 5 in China though. Yeah, I was like 1500 in China. I was top 5. So
on the Super Server.
Oh yeah, I was right next. I was right behind Canyon and Showmaker, but they were a bit too good.
Oh, those are some.
I knew they would win Worlds. When you played against them, you knew that those guys.
Those are some names that are pretty hard to beat, both in solo queue and competitive.
But yeah, I will trade. That's just what it is. I'm just gonna fight my lane opponent, and no matter what, basically, I will trade. It's going to happen.
I mean, it's a transcontinental name. You've used it in every region pretty much. So.
Yep. So it's what I like. It's I've kept using it because it's just a good luck charm.
Yeah, and you still use it to this day on NA.
Yep.
So if we can go and trade for the next slide in that case, we'll now be talking about Worlds 2018, which I think is a peak of, I think it's like 2 peaks in Western League of Legends. I think obviously this one and then the 2019 finals with G2 and FPX. So this is like the first time I think a Western team made finals that wasn't like ancient. I mean, we had like, I think Fnatic won season 1, but like, I was like 10 years old back then, so that one doesn't count to me. So there's like huge matchup. At the time, the Shy was taking over the world, and you described in the previous slide about trading when like the jungler is present. I feel like a player that encapsulates it the best is the Shy. Like he doesn't care if it's a jungler or the jungler and support. He will trade. So like, kind of run me through what do you think? Because I mean, you've interviewed probably dozens, if not hundreds of times about Worlds, but more so, what do you think is like your biggest takeaway from the whole experience that you still take away to this day? And what do you think of the Shy as a player?
I mean, he was obviously really good. I'll always stand by the fact that I wasn't as far out of his league as people like to say I was because of the finals.
That's a bit of a hot take, maybe.
Well, obviously, because you guys didn't scrim me IG 50 times, but considering I have, like I played against, like they were the team we scrimmed the most out of the entire event because we were opposite side of the bracket, so we met in groups, and then we were opposite side of the bracket, so the entire playoffs we were 4 or 5 weeks we were scrimming them almost every single week, 2 or maybe even 3 blocks, right? So sorry, 2 or 3 days, because you only have 8 teams at some point, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Right, so you go 8 teams, and then who do you scrim? And
yeah.
On the opposite side of your bracket, you have to pick on the opposite side of your bracket, right? Because you can't pick the same bracket as you because you're going to meet them.
So options are so limited. So
you have out of 4 teams option, right?
And
so we scrimmed IG a shitload.
Yeah.
So out of those weeks, like where we scrimmed them once or maybe even twice a week, sometimes even 3 times, I believe. I obviously have like information from 50, 60 games of League of Legends, and I think that's enough of a sample size to know whether you're completely outclassed or outmatched.
I can agree. And
I can tell you this much: they didn't ban Victor because they thought, oh, the Shy is going to fucking run him with Aurelia. I can tell you that much. They banned Victor because Victor was a problem when I locked it in, and he did not have fun when I locked in Victor. So, just to, that's all I'm saying. Did they 3-0 us and completely murder us? Absolutely. But we were pretty evenly matched as scrim partners, and I think that they were obviously a contender for winning the championship, but so were we. And just because we got 3-0'd on the day due to, like I mentioned before in this interview, I think stress and anxiety, which is we handled much worse than they did. I still think we were contenders. And like I said, I don't think we were completely, I was completely outclassed compared to him in that way. Because like I said, if I was, then they wouldn't have banned Victor.
True.
That's how I believe it. If I was so bad, then he could give me Victor and win anyway. If you think if the argument is, oh, he just bans Victor, so you can't play the OP champion and then he wins, then that's fine too. But I can tell you that playing scrims against him throughout many matchups, I think I was able to keep up with him. Was he better than me? Without a doubt. But it wasn't like...
Yeah, but it's like...
What I'm saying is out of 100 games, he wasn't going to win 80 of them, you know what I mean?
So... I mean, he's a player who, that was his peak, and then he was relevant 2019, and then for 2020, 2021, 2022, he kind of, dipped. Now, he was still having moments where he was good individually, but it wasn't until 2023 he reached the peak again. So, do you feel like there was, did you ever, consider him, washed? Because I think a lot of people labeled him washed, because, I mean, he would have these, crazy isolated deaths. He would die, in World Finals last year, he died 16 times, but, I think a lot of people wrote him off as one of the best players in the world. But I think the whole time, the talent was there. It's just more so, I guess the meta has to be in his favor. There's certain factors that have to go your way for you to look at your best. And I feel like for a while, he doesn't strike me as someone who can excel at the tank meta, even though he has a few tank highlights.
So, I don't know. I think he was a pretty good tank player. I mean, he beat me on he beat us playing Salon in the finals. So
yeah, I remember that game. Yeah,
you know what I mean? I think he's just good at League of Legends. I never considered him washed. I already explained why I think that probably he had those moments, but you have to consider that stress and anxiety.
Stress and anxiety. It seems like the theme of today's episode is stress and anxiety.
Stress and anxiety changes a player, and if you are in a team where you don't feel like you can do your thing because you need to do something else because your thing isn't good enough to win, because when you scrim 6 games a day and you play 40 games a week or whatever,
that's a lot.
36 games a week basically of scrims, or let's say you scrim, I don't know, I'm not 36, 25 games a week. Let's say you scrim 25 games a week, and out of those 25 games, 24 of them, your thing didn't work, and it didn't feel right. You didn't feel like you could do what you wanted to do. Maybe 20 games, maybe 24 is a bit too many, but let's say 20 out of those 25 games, what you normally do didn't end up killing the Nexus. You lost, or the game was really difficult to win anyway. Maybe you stop doing it.
Maybe you do
that same thing. Maybe you start changing your approach. Maybe you start changing the way you perceive laning phase. Maybe you start making decisions that are not exactly 100% based on truth, and you are using your emotions to dictate what decisions you're making, because you feel like if you move to grubs and you get the grubs or the herald and you secure the herald, that's not enough of an advantage to win the game, because in your scrims, when you do that, you lose. So you start pressuring your lane opponent whilst you're doing Herald, and suddenly you get ganked and die. Meanwhile, your team is doing Herald or Dragon, and you look like an idiot because, oh my god, why would you do that? Your jungler is doing the Herald or Dragon, but you don't have the context of the fact that you've been doing that in scrims and you just lost anyway.
That was oddly specific. Is everything okay at FlyQuest?
Of course. I'm just giving you an example.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Sounds like you have a lot of trauma from scrims, actually.
No, our scrims are pretty good.
Would you actually say that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we scrim pretty good. We're not winning everything like we were in spring in scrims, and I think that's also because I'm not smurfing as hard. But I think our scrims are pretty good. I think we're at least 50-50 or so. I jungled, honestly. I top laned, I bot laned. I know how people think in competitive play, and I'm giving you these examples off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, in solo queue, this is what people do. People play solo queue 5 games in a row, and if 5 games in a row they pick the same champion and they lost all 5 games, they start thinking maybe the champion's the problem. Yeah. It's just what humans do.
Yeah.
You don't keep doing the same thing and then pretend like variables. Like, you don't pretend that what you're doing is not a variable because you have the capacity to change what you do. So if you think that what you're doing may be not as conducive to winning as a different action, one might want to change their action. Right?
I agree.
So as a result, as a competitive player, like the Shy, where he was doing his thing and winning every game, he's going to keep doing that and keep crushing people. But then if he plays on a team where his thing doesn't work, he's going to start taking risks. All players do this. All players will start taking, maybe not all, I can't generalize like that because technically speaking, there's probably a few anomalies out there. But many players will start taking more risks. Most players will, because they grew up from playing solo queue, they got into competitive, and what do you do in solo queue when the game starts going south?
Coin flip.
You turn on the gas and you start flipping. And that's exactly what everyone will do when they're stressed, because that's what they've all been doing from day one of playing League of Legends. So suddenly, people running it down in competitive starts making a lot more sense, because they feel like they won't win unless they take more risks.
If anything, would you say then like players like appearing to be inting, like it's more so like they're just trying something else?
Yeah. And they might not be as good at it. They might understand that it's not the best play, and they just go for it anyway because they feel like they'll lose if they don't. It might be completely unfounded, and they may be running it down completely, but because of the way their psyche is at that moment, they think it's still the best idea.
Yeah.
There's more to professional players running it down than they are just bad.
Honestly, it kind of changes my perspective on a lot of things now that I think about it.
I'm happy I could do that.
I might start thinking about like pro play at a much deeper level now. So now we're going to be talking about the time you actually won a trophy in November of that year. Unfortunately, it was a wrong one. Ideally, you would have had the more prestigious one, but you won Esports PC Rookie of the Year. And funny enough, someone who was also in the running was Licorice. And fast forward, 6 years later, you both are still competing against each other. This time it's more directly. Back then you were in Europe, he was in NA. But now you compete against him directly. Do you have like any thoughts of him as a player? Or is it just like he's just another opponent to you?
Oh yeah, I don't mind. I thought he was pretty bad when I played against him in 2018. There's a famous interview, like there's a famous clip where Pete he was holding his camera like this, like he was like holding it in his hip, like near his hip, and I thought it was off.
Oh.
So when it's off, obviously, like
you're saying, yeah.
I just want to say, like when the cameras are off, every single pro player talks shit. This is
I know.
Unanimously the way it is. This is just the way it is. Okay. Yes, your favorite pro player talks shit all the time. It's just the way it is. So I was just like, wow, these guys were fucking dog shit. Like, holy shit, C9 was so trash.
My favorite pro player is Carrier, so I hope he doesn't talk shit, but he probably does.
I know for a fact
he definitely, I feel like he does.
I feel like even Korean pros will be like, wow, this guy is like absolute, like, it's a free win, you know? Like, just pick me as real, I'm going to shit on these nerds. Like, 100%, something like that. That's the bare minimum.
The way he drafts, you can definitely tell. There's like
it has to be at least.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I don't know. To be fair with you, I should say all Western pros. I don't know about China and Korea that much. The culture there can be different. But anyway, that's what I said. And then Pete uploaded it, and I didn't know. And then like people were like, "Wow, he's so cocky. Fuck this guy." And anyway, I felt that way, so I don't care really. I was just like, well, it is what it is. You know, that was my honest opinion. And obviously, you filter that usually when the cameras are on. So the only person I was looking at was Thompson, because he was also in his first year, and he actually won the TI. So I was shocked that I got this award, because I thought he deserved it more than I did. Because
he won the tournament.
Yes, exactly. Everyone else was just like, I don't know.
Just some talent. Like Carpe was a big Overwatch guy. Same with Jonak. Like these are some big names in different games. But
oh yeah, no, it's just like there's a guy that made World Finals in League, and then there's a guy that won the TI, and I feel like that's kind of hard to overshadow.
Yeah.
And like obviously I won the whole year through, so again, that's the facts. I didn't feel that way, but that's the facts. So I'm happy that I got it.
Do you still have
my
the
only
trophy?
regret, of course I do. It's in my place right now.
That's nice.
But I did an interview. They interviewed me, and when I received it, and I was like, things are only going to get better, and they didn't.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cringe. I won't lie, but
we're gonna touch on it anyways in the next slide if we can go to the next slide.
So yeah, that's a bit of a blower.
So you're talking about this infamous roster. Yeah, I feel like
the drip.
I feel like this is like, it's personally one of my favorite Fnatic rosters of all time. We have like some of my favorite players. I really like Hylli. I don't know why people don't give him the respect he deserves, but
me too. Man.
I really like Hylli. Like he can have his like down moments, but like the up moments are just so like
you know what's funny is like Hylli never had a down when we played together. I don't believe it. I can't remember a single moment. Like, okay, maybe a game or two. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
fuck it. You know, he ran it down in a game or whatever. Like, same. Like, every pro player has a like, okay, again, not every pro, but like most really high level pros have their moment. You know, they ain't it. But I don't know, man. When we played together, like there was no such thing. Like my man was extremely resilient mentally, and I do think that's because we were together. Same for me. Like I was resilient, but when I think back to it, I definitely suffered from like really big games. I let it get to my head for sure. Like especially like finals against G2, I think I let it get to my head like really bad. Like not in a way of like let it get to my head, as in like most people. That's why I shrugged it off when people said that. But just like, I was just anxious, you know. I was anxious about the results of the game, and I cared more about it than most other teams. Mm-hmm. You know.
Would you say you have a higher standard than most people, or?
I mean, it was just like, I guess like you could say that's letting it get to my head. Obviously, I have a higher standard than most people. No shit. That's just the way it is. That's why I got to play high-level league for a very long time, because I held myself and my teammates to a higher standard. That's why a lot of people think that I'm a douchebag and there's a lot of drama surrounding me. Why? Because I held people to a higher standard. If people didn't take the responsibility that I thought they should, I would address that with them. And if they thought that I was full of shit, then we would argue about it. And that argument is drama.
To the outside eyes looking in.
Well, no, even at the inside.
That's
drama, bro. Like, it's just like two personalities like in a pro team clashing. That's drama, bro. That's just the way it is. Like, I also like I would, you know, personally feel attacked. Like, I remember very clearly. It's actually like 2018. It happened. Me and Rekkles had drama. It was never released. Actually, fun fact. It was never talked about. But I got really mad at him. I got really mad at him, and I was mad for like a whole day, and then I apologized, and then we went on to play World Finals. But my point is if I hadn't been angry at him, I don't know if the message would have got across that I wanted to get across, right? I know that. Let me think. What other times? I remember in 2020 Worlds as well. I did a whole speech. You know, I got really emotional, and it doesn't always have to be mad. Sometimes it can just be emotional, you know. But just drama, like, you don't getting people to step up to your standard or the standard you set for them because you know they can do better. And I think that's the hardest thing to do. I think that's something that's really important in a pro team, and I think that's what the coaches should do.
Yeah, ideally. Like,
but a lot of the time, coaches don't have they give up on the player before they want to do that.
Yeah. But
I think if you want to be the best in the world,
you can't do that.
You need to push people to a higher standard. And I really wanted to win. I really wanted to win more than anything. So if I saw people like consistently talking in a way of like that made me feel like they were lowering the standard of what they're capable of, I would address that with them in front of everyone sometimes. Because like I was a 20-year-old kid, you know, like I was 21, I think, this year. 2020, I was 21, I believe. I didn't know how to, you know, do that behind the scenes. You know, I didn't know how to like address some of that issue. So I was just like, dude, what the fuck? Like, why are you being like this? Like, why don't you want to do more? Why are you not trusting your teammates? Like this type of stuff. These were most of the time the arguments, like, what's wrong? Why don't you trust me? Or why don't you trust this guy? Or why don't you want to do this in the game? Like, why don't you want to look for this? What's going on? Like, what the fuck is happening? Because like, I could feel that there's the standard that of trust that I wanted to set in our team would be like not met, or the other way around, where they didn't trust themselves enough to pull their weight. Which is my issue with Rekkles in 2018. Actually, it was like it was because he wasn't playing on our roster, and he thought like, oh, I'm coming back in. I should let Caps carry because that's what we did the entire summer. And I was just like, bro, like you are fucking good at this game.
It's Rekkles.
So you need to be selfish and tell Broxa and Hylli what they need to do to help you.
Yeah.
Because it's obvious you're getting griefed and you're just not helping. Because sometimes they would grief him in scrims and not help him, right?
And he's just not saying anything.
And he's just like, oh, it is what it is. Like, they know better, you know, like, it's fine. And I'm just like, dude, like, you need to understand that sometimes you will know better and you need to educate other people and help them. You have to. Yeah. If we want to win it here, if we want to come to this world and actually make it far, you need to do that. You can't just... And then he put in a shitload of effort, and I have so much respect for him for the fact that he stepped up. And And we made it really far because he was a fucking phenomenal bot laner. And together with Broxa and Hylli, like they made sure that it was always stable. The game was always in a good position for us, and they played really fucking well. So, again, I'm not taking credit for that argument, but I think that it needs to take place. You know what I mean? Like,
people need to be held to a higher standard.
Exactly. Like, when someone's doing that, someone needs to call them out. I don't care who it is. Obviously, ideally, it's staff members, but my staff members were, you know, like they didn't want to piss him off. So because they were like, oh yeah, I'd rather not piss him off, and like he might just like throw on stage, or he might mental boom on stage, or whatever, or like he might mental boom in scrims, and then he doesn't want to play, right? But that's not acceptable, you know. It's like, dude, I'd rather go on stage with mental boom team that tried to win than a team that just gave up on winning from the first go. You know what I mean? Like,
because one of them has a direction, one doesn't.
Yeah, dude, let's try to fucking win, like, no matter what. And if we're just gonna sit here and like accept that like we have our problems and not even try to solve them, then what the fuck are you doing in an international event? Like, just go home. Like, unironically, just go home, forfeit. Like, no point in playing an international event if you are not actively taking your problems head on in your boot camp minimum. You know, even during the event, you need to have those discussions. A lot of the reason why between week 1 and week 2, Fnatic. That was a meme for a long time, but it really wasn't a meme. We would show up week 2 is because week 1 we'd do some stuff or things would happen on stage, and between week 1 and week 2, people would be talking. They'd be like, "What the fuck?" And it wasn't just me; it was our whole team. Right? It's like, "What the fuck? Why are you doing this? What the fuck? Why are we drafting this? What the fuck? What's happening?"
Yeah.
And those discussions between week 1 and week 2 is what allowed us to come back in week 2, start pissing on people, and like actually being a fucking great team. And I'm really happy talking about this stuff. Like, don't misunderstand me. I'm talking about some potentially negative things, but there are just great memories. Like, this is what I like when I think back on my career. These are the highs. They're not winning or losing. It's like, it's great, but the real highs are when me and my teammates overcame our problems together. For me.
Yeah, I mean, that's good to hear. We can go to the next slide now. And
that's deep.
That is pretty deep.
Well, it's just my favorite memories, you know? Like, that's what I loved about it the most.
So following this, we're now at the point where you roll swap to jungle, and
it's not early though. Like, that's halfway through now.
It was around the time, and I mean, this is the most recent picture after you roll swap. Bit of a jungle on the head. So So like you mentioned when we first started, you feel like you wouldn't mind playing other roles. So I think Adam was a top laner at the time. Did you believe that like you wanted to play with him and you just switched to jungle, or was it like was it against you? Like, why did you switch to jungle?
I switched to jungle because I got told that Adam was getting signed and I could choose to jungle, sit on the bench, or join a different team. And I just said, fuck it, I'll jungle. Like, I'm not going to uproot my whole life, you know? Like, I thought I was going to play top lane. I told everyone on the staff that Adam wasn't worth the amount of money they were asking for him and for his buyout. I could have been wrong. Like, he turned out to be a really good top laner in the LEC, so honestly, maybe I was wrong. But that was the vibe I had. I made that decision separately from Adam. And I decided to play jungle because at the end of the day, I knew me and Hylli would be an absolute terror. And I remember talking to Upset as well, and he was telling me that he would also put in the work to make sure that we were really strong together as a 3-man unit. And I knew Niski was down because I talked to him as well. So it was really important to me just that the people on my team knew that I was going to back them up, but I also needed them to back me up, you know?
Yeah.
And we came to that conclusion, which is why at the end of that year I was fucking pissed that he went home. For Worlds.
I remember. That was a whole debacle. That was a mess.
So fucking pissed.
Yeah,
and like, obviously, like, being like, 22 at the time.
I mean, bygones are bygones.
I started blaming Fnatic. I started blaming everything and everyone. Oh, it was a mess, man.
Yeah, that Worlds, I remember. It was
a mess.
It was so sloppy. There was like so much drama. It was not.
Oh yeah, it was bad.
It was not a good time to be a Fnatic.
But the thing is like, that's why I was so fucking mad. Because like, I roll swapped with the agreement that we had each other's backs.
And it just didn't feel like...
I mean, what do you mean? Like, when push came to fucking shove, like, 24 hours before we played, someone leaves us. Like, dude, that's the definition of ditch. Yeah, like that is textbook monster ditch.
Especially at international,
This is the monster ditch, bro. Like, you can't ditch harder than that.
Yeah.
So I was completely livid. Livid. Because that event was going to determine whether I was going to sign on for a Fnatic for 3 more years.
Oh, you want to sign a big contract?
Bro, they offered me 900,000 fucking euros.
Per year in total?
Per year.
Jesus.
50K signing bonus, bro.
2.7?
Huh?
2.7 for.
The absolute massive contract was on the table. And I said,
Jesus.
I don't want to sign until I see Upset play because he signed for 3 years too. And I want to make sure that he performs well internationally, because performing internationally is a part of why I play competitive League of Legends. This is more important to me than money. It's more important than anything to me.
And this is why you're a bigger man than me, because I would have taken the 2.7 million. They're like, oh, 2.7 million euro. I would sign right there. Cursive.
I can't lie that I've regretted not taking it
Yeah.
in some moments, but I'm very happy where I am now. And you know, I don't earn that much money anymore, but I came to learn that would have been probably the highest paid European player in the region at the time.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know if there's anyone else with more, but it doesn't matter. But the point is, like, that's why I was so fucking mad, because like,
You sacrifice so much.
well, it's not that I sacrificed. It was just like, dude, like, I told my GM, like, I need to see him play internationally before I can sign on for that many years with someone, because I know he's on the team for that many years. And in Europe, if you're signed on for a long time, it's hard to get rid of someone.
Yeah.
You can't just fire them like in an A. So, you know, I assumed that they were going to offer him a sizable contract too, because obviously that's what you do if you sign on someone for a long time, and he signed on. So I was like, I need to make sure this guy is, you know, like,
About his business.
He's, you know, he stands on business, or he stood on the airplane and went
Well,
home.
he definitely did not stand on business.
I was fucking livid.
He took business class flights back
Because
home,
I told them not to re-sign him for a long time. I told please don't do that. Please wait
Try
until for an international event, because performing internationally is what we all like.
strive for.
This is what Fnatic is about, right?
Yeah.
Like, we've had 3 years of international performances. We can continue that, whether I'm jungling or whatever. Like, we can still do this. Please don't do that. And they just do it anyway. And then they also signed Adam without my say. And I was like, what I'm saying is, I was really fucking mad about that.
Yeah, they just weren't listening to you.
And that's fine. Like, at the end of the day, that's fine. I've come to terms with that, and they made their own decisions. And honestly, they suffered for them too. So at the end of the day, you know what? Fuck it. You know,
You got your.
they had some bad years as well, and we both suffered. I had some bad years. They had some bad years, but now we both came out swinging. We both went to MSI, and you know what? Bygones are bygones, like you said. Now I'm okay with it. But in that moment,
Back then.
I was fucking livid. I was so mad.
I can imagine.
I was so mad. And then yeah, obviously it would have been nice to be have that kind of cash, but
Yeah, I mean, that is a lot of cash, but I think the principle was more important to you at the time, so.
still is now.
Yeah.
For me, I've always been a believer that money can be earned. I'm privileged in the sense that I can stream, I can cast. As long as I put my mind to it, I have the privilege to do a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of people appreciate my streaming, and I'm super grateful for that. Not grateful enough to stream every day, but grateful enough to know that I can do it.
Yeah, if it comes.
And
to
I'm really grateful for the people that support me and watch my stream.
Mm-hmm.
It's also why I don't like taking donations. I don't have a donation button on my stream because
really?
I don't want people to pay me for streaming. I want people to, you know, I want to make sure that they can enjoy that at the minimum of either watching an ad or subscribing to my channel.
Yeah.
I mean, that's up to you, but you know, I don't want people to pay me for doing that.
Yeah.
I want them to be able to enjoy it for free, and it's what I give back. You know.
We're going to be talking about your own experience with the airport. So, as you mentioned, you're very livid about the whole like Fnatic experience. Would you say that's what pushed you over the edge to then consider NA, or?
I always considered it. I wanted to make a bigger difference. I felt like after 4 years in Europe, I wasn't gonna eclipse any of the G2 players, and I wanted to be in a region where I could be bigger. So I wanted to go to an A because I felt like maybe I can be the guy that gives an A some international success. Maybe I was a bit too cocky.
And I remember like there was an interview you did with Travis Gafford at All Stars in Vegas where he said if you're not playing for like G2 or Fnatic, you might as well consider NA because you're not going to win in EU. You might as well consider going to NA.
That's true.
And funny enough, at the time you said the team you thought was like the closest to contention was XL. Now obviously it didn't play out like that, but like, do you still agree with like the sentiment like it's easier to make an impact in NA? Because I feel like still like G2 is like this like like it's just immovable like.
I actually think nowadays you can join K-Corp or what are they called? MDS or Mad something? Corey?
The MDK, yeah.
Yeah, Mad Lions, Corey, whatever. Yeah, you can join those teams and you can make a really big impact in a different way. And I think that's awesome. You know, like even if you just compete on those rosters and you give the top performers a run for their money, you're gonna have a really dedicated and passionate fan base behind you, and I think that's awesome. I think that's a big reason why I loved playing so much, because competing and playing awesome best of fives against some of the best teams in the world, it really made me feel like I ignited a love for League of Legends in a lot of fans and I gave them, together with my team, you know, obviously have to give credit to Fnatic and the people that were playing and working on that team, staff members, everyone. I feel like even when we didn't win, people really loved watching us and loved watching us specifically compete with G2, compete at Worlds. People loved that. And I think that, you know, I just feel, when I think back to it, I'm just so grateful that I got to do that, you know, and playing for those orgs and seeing all those fans, especially K-Corp, honestly, like, it's super impressive how many people they get to turn
For
up.
sure, especially K-Corp in specific.
Like, they don't even fucking win shit, bro.
Yeah, I mean, 10th, 5th, it's not...
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, they're still in contention right now, so hopefully they...
Yeah, right now they're...
So hopefully they can do more, and I really hope those fans can get to really cheer for their team for reasons other than pure passion and love.
Yeah.
Also because they're winning. But that's really powerful stuff, in my opinion. It's really powerful stuff, and I can't blame anyone for wanting to play on those orgs as well.
And the roster you joined on TL, I mean, it had some huge names. Like, if you told me this roster, like, I would have, like... When I first heard the roster rumors, I literally pinched myself because I mean, this is like too good to be true, you know? Yeah. You're on the roster, it was Santorin, Bjergsen, Hansama, Core JJ. Yeah. Like, this is like, it's almost like the all-star game. You just like took all the best players in the West and put them together. But obviously, I feel like the results weren't awful, but they didn't meet the expectation. Because the expectation was here.
Yeah, I mean, we had to make Worlds at least, and the fact that we missed Worlds was inexcusable. Yeah. We also didn't make it to MSI, which was 2-team MSI, which is also inexcusable. Point is, like, even if we made second and went to Worlds and had a good performance, it would have been salvageable. But the fact that we missed Worlds was just the nail in the coffin.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, the expectation was kind of, or the minimum was like at least go to Worlds, like a roster that good. So when the roster boomed, what was like your initial reaction, and like what was your kind of, obviously it didn't feel good, but like what were you feeling at the time? Because you mentioned at Fnatic you had a lot of like, you used the word livid a lot. Were you livid when TL lost as well, or?
No, I guess not. I was just depressed, bro.
Yeah, I mean that was pretty rough. Like
I felt, I didn't really feel like, I just felt like I didn't live up to the part where I talked about like keeping people to my standard and keeping people to a higher standard for themselves. I didn't do that at all that year. Yeah, I had a lower standard for myself. I had a way lower standard for other people around me, and I was okay with letting them like lead, in the sense of like, I was okay with people setting the standard for themselves, and that's never something that I've been like, when I noticed that someone was doing less than what they're capable of or less than what I think they should, I would always try and do something about it. Not always through aggressive means, but I would always make sure that people push themselves to be better. Yeah. And I think that year it would have gone a really fucking long way if I stepped up for my teammates, especially Hans. Oh, yeah, I really regret that I didn't tell people to just let him do what works for him, and whatever they need, just have me do it instead. Because I think that I think in Fnatic, when I was playing with Rekkles and Hylli, we had each other's backs no matter what. Like, it wasn't even, like, and a lot of people say that Rekkles, back when he was playing AD, that he needed to play his champions, right? And I was like, that wasn't even like a thought. That wasn't even a downside to playing with Rekkles. That was a privilege, you know?
It just means he's just that good on his...
Well, it's like, there's nothing, it's like I said, it's like playing with Rekkles, you let him play Sivir and Tristana and he'll fucking win. Like, he'll just win the game for you. That's a privilege, bro. Like, that's not a downside.
Not many teams have that.
Picking first three, like, whatever it is that you need to do to make sure he has a good, like, a good pick, this is a privilege. For me, at least, that's how I always considered it. Yeah. Making sure that he has a good position in the draft was always something that I considered to be privileged. I consider myself to be privileged because my ID will carry the game. It's not a matter of he might or he won't or whatever. It will happen. Give him 3 bans if he needs it. Give him whatever the fuck he needs. He will perform. Yeah. Obviously, it might not win the game because maybe I'm not playing well. But if it came down to him, he would be there and he would perform extremely well. Yeah. So for me, like I just didn't step up for Hans nearly enough in that way, and I let peer pressure and stuff like get in the way of that, and I just don't think that's good. I should have stepped up for him and let everyone know, like, dude, just play what Hans wants to play, and if he isn't talking about who wants to play, like, spend a lot of time with him and make sure that I listen to him and I can support him in that way. Because I think if I did that, we would have undoubtedly went to Worlds, might have even won everything. Honestly, because I do think they were that good bot line. Yeah.
I mean, that's a crazy bot lane.
I mean, we played against EG in Houston finals, in spring finals, and their bot lane got sent home level 1. 2 games in a row.
It was,
they couldn't lane, bro. Like, they couldn't lane. And my point is, like, that's the kind of shit that I would have a field day in the jungle if my bot lane did that to people.
Yeah, you just take over.
Me and the homies in the bot lane would not let that slide. That's why I heavily considered jungling myself in that roster, and I begged Gyoto, let me play scrim, like let me play a day of scrims, let me play a day of scrims with them in the jungle, please. It's gonna be so free. Didn't happen. I'm not blaming Santorin or whatever. Like I think my biggest skill out of all the skills I may or may not have is connecting with my teammates. Yeah. When I sit down and talk to my teammates about what they want to do in the game, I'm really good at making sure that they feel comfortable doing what they want to do. Yeah. And I think if Hans and Core were comfortable playing their own game and they just had someone supporting that idea,
there's no answer. You can't stop them.
No one in NA would have had a chance. Yeah. And I wasn't there for them in that way. As a top laner, I used to teleport bot lane because that's what
the meta was.
No, that wasn't actually. No one did it. I was the guy that started TPing bot lane.
Was it really first you?
Kinda, yeah. As aggressively and as often, absolutely, it was me.
They started trading and instantly.
Obviously, so I was with TP bot lane as well, and don't get me wrong, that's where I got the idea. So credit to where credit's due. But I would consistently teleport bot lane over many games. Yeah. Because of me and Hylli, like that was just the way it is. Like me and Hylli worked really hard together, and that's why I was like, I know if Hylli and Rekkles have a good game and they're stable, all I need to do is farm and they'll carry me no matter what. No matter what. They will carry, and it was true. They won almost every game doing it. But don't get me wrong, other people TP'd bot lane too. It was just like it wasn't
as effective.
You know, it wasn't like that. You know, like boom, you play the game bot lane, top laner shows up, no mercy, or mid laner shows up, and that was our culture. You know, like no matter what, Hylli and Rekkles have to be in a good spot in the game. Not have to be, but if they are, the game's over. So you automatically go there and do that. And that was true for the majority of my career playing with them. And it's why also when I was a jungler and I was playing with Hylli and Upset, I was really focused on playing bot 3v3. And I was really focused on making sure that they suffered in bot 3v3. And I know a lot of people fucking hated playing against us. I know Hans himself was like, dude, like when we played against your team, I hated it. Yeah. Because I was always there. I was always... The thing is, not that I was always there. I was actually a rather efficient jungler, but whenever anything needed to happen from bot lane perspective, I would take the time to understand their perspective and then help them a lot. Like help them exactly how they needed and how they wanted. And that's what I'm saying. I think the power of helping someone in the way they want to be helped cannot be understated. Yeah. It's really important that someone receiving help feels comfortable taking it. And meeting them not even halfway, but entirely on their side of what they expected when they asked for help. I think that kind of comfort is something that not many players can provide. Yeah. And I think that that's why a lot of people were really comfortable receiving my help. And they were really, like, they saw that, like, I was happy to do it and that my lane was still fine or my jungle matchup was still fine and everything was going great still, despite that. Despite that I went out of the way to help them in a way that most people wouldn't. Most players wouldn't, that is. And like I said, I think that's always been my biggest strength. I think that's always why, like, for example, I think that's why me and Hylli were so good together for so long. Because I would just go the extra mile. And I haven't been able to recreate that.
So now we're going to be talking about after you left TL. I actually have some messages from Reddit. So when you initially transitioned to content creator, there was user AZNS123 said, Bwipo streamers fanatic, he would be a great content creator. He explains his thought process and answers so many questions in his chat. His voice is calming and easy to listen to.
So I appreciate it, I guess.
High praise from AZNS123. So like you said earlier, I mean, obviously, like, the fan experience is something you care about and it worked here. And then there's also this comment that said, IDGAF, I love Bwipo. I love his meatball sub personality.
I don't know what that means.
I'm not sure what that means either. Do you have any
like
theories, like what that might mean?
I don't know, just comfort food, you know? Like
I think it might be comfort.
I mean, I don't know. Is that what it is? Like,
I have no... I feel like
sub personality.
I hope there's not a double entendre.
Maybe blunt?
No, whoa. Okay, hopefully that is not what that is. That is most definitely not what we are looking for.
I hope not.
This is rolling, right? Maybe you didn't stream that much, but I felt like streaming anything is more than like 99% of pros. So it's like it's a low bar. But
I mean, the thing is like I wasn't a pro. I was full-time content. I mean, I'm super grateful for TL. Like I didn't want to move back to Europe, and no team in NA wanted me, and I was like, I need to play one more year, or at least a split in NA before I go home, back to Europe. So they agreed. Basically, they agreed to like help me out.
Yeah.
You know, like it didn't cost them more money, but I'm still really grateful that they went out of their way to allow me to stay in one of their apartments. And like that's why like whenever people are like, oh, you know, what do you think about TL? I was like, I'm just grateful, man. Like, they gave me the opportunity to do what I wanted with my life. And they went out of their way to make sure that I could do that comfortably.
Yeah, you were accommodated for,
And I think that's like, you know, a huge thank you to Steve and TL for that. Like they really stepped up there. And honestly, like I'm just happy for them that they're seeing the success that they've always wanted. So I'm really grateful for that, and like I'm actually really happy for them. You know, like out of all the teams we could have lost to, I'm happy it was TL.
Yeah. I'm sure it's like some amount of like bittersweet because it was your former team.
Well, obviously, I'd rather fucking win.
Yeah, I mean everyone would rather fucking win.
If I lose, I'm happy that I lost to people that I respect and that I want them to be happy. Because
like
there's some teams, there's some teams in LEC and LCS that are like, these people are absolutely either dumb or just like incompetent or like just assholes. You know, like don't get me wrong, I don't know most people, but I can't name names, but I've heard things.
I've heard things as well.
And I'm happy that I can say with confidence TL does not have any of those.
Yeah, I mean, I think all their players are very likable. Their mid laner can get a little bit vocal at times, which people can have a bad taste about.
Dude, Ian's great. I like him a lot. I also feel a bit bittersweet about it because I spawned as their head coach, and I was trying to help with their academy team, but I had too many struggles of my own to like step up and show up every day to the academy team and try to help them. So I've always felt bad about that. I never really apologized for that, and I think I should. You know, me saying it out loud now is another incentive to apologize to him personally. And I definitely, you know, I definitely could have done more for that, for the academy team and for Spawn and also for APA and Yon, because they were both on that team. But they found their own way. They grinded their way out, and they're a phenomenal team, and I'm really happy to see them succeed.
Yeah, both those players, it feels like there were criticisms that you could have in the past, but it feels like specifically this split as well as last split, they really like, for lack of a better term, they shut all the haters up. Like
For sure.
I think Yon, like he's just playing so well. Same with APA, like they're playing really well.
I agree.
Now we're gonna be reacting to a couple of your clips when you're streaming.
Okay.
His cannon just died. He's so sad right now. He's crying for Kane, asking him, why did you level 3 gank the gangplank? He's too fucking good at the game. Bonk, shot in the back of the head.
That's an interesting sounding gun. Most guns don't sound like bonk, but
right now. Bonk, back of the head.
He could not lane. It's true.
This looks miserable. I would break my monitor.
Yeah, I mean, he's not playing the game. I don't need to play the game for him, do I? No need to flash on the third and dive if he just wants to die.
Yeah, I was that good.
You're that good? You're just basically...
My gangplank was just that good. No, I mean, I don't know. It's solo queue, so obviously you play against some players that are not as skilled at the game per se. That's the way it is, matchmaking and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I like joking around on my stream sometimes. For the most part, I keep it pretty sweaty. But when I'm in a good mood, I like joking around and having a good time. I know this is from back when I was in Germany and Fnatic, so I didn't stream much actually. So whenever I did stream, I was always in a good mood, and I was always making memes and like laughing at people. Yeah, so basically it was always good times when I did stream because I was always in a good mood. But in general, I want to stream more often, even when I'm not feeling like great and I'm making great content, because a lot of people actually believe that any content is better than no content.
Do you disagree with that?
Yeah, I do. Like because like I obviously have a high standard for myself, so I like making great content rather than any content if I do make content. But then I also realize that over the course of my career, I haven't streamed much, and then I get it. You know, people would rather watch me stream than not stream. Yeah. So even when I'm having a shitty day and ICBA entertaining people, I can just be salty and people can laugh about me being salty instead. You know. But, you know, that's not how... Like, for example, when I see someone really salty and, like, paranoid complaining about streaming, I just close their stream. And I'm a big complainer. Fun fact, a lot of people think I have great mental and stuff. That's stream persona. Yeah. I talked to Hylli. Actually, he was playing his last game. Shit, man, I'm sad he didn't make playoffs. But that was, like, a few weeks ago. Yeah. And he straight up told me, I miss your whining.
Yeah.
Because I was perma-whining, and so like I was playing scrims in the office, and I'm like, this guy is so
CBA,
bad. Like,
CBA.
wow, this guy's dog shit. Oh, what is he doing?
Yeah.
And all this yapping, and he was like, I miss it. So like, my point is, I'm a bit of a yapper when it comes to off stream.
Such as evident. I mean, even on camera right now.
Oh yeah,
such as pretty
a
evident.
bit of a yapper, a bit of a complainer when
Yeah.
I'm sweating in solo queue, trying my best to win. So. When I stream, I've consciously kind of turned down the try to win as hard as possible, and I turned up the even if the game doesn't go the way I want it to,
Try your
it's
best,
gonna be all right. It's okay, guys.
Yeah.
We love playing for fun. Woohoo! League of Legends.
Yeah.
Which completely polar opposite to me when I'm playing sweaty solo queue, trying to climb, constantly looking at what's going on. Like, look at my jungler. What the fuck is he doing? Why is he pathing there? Pig him. Like, come here, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Come gank, or like don't do that camp or whatever, and then like obviously like they CBA as well, you know, so I get it. Sometimes I'm too sweaty.
We can go to the next slide. We actually have a second clip, and funny enough, this was from today. You did this on stream.
Oh, he thinks he beats me. Isn't that kind of cute? Oh.
That was something else.
But the hitbox is so fucking big, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that new champion is quite the
She's
shit.
pretty balanced.
Yeah, you started off with like, what is that, like 2/3 HP, then Vayne is like full health, like, granted she is down 3 levels, but...
Oh yeah, I mean
she is
it's
down.
because I was being balanced all over her screen before that point. Like no one interacted top lane. It was just pure 1v1, and
Yeah.
I think that champion's busted. But yeah, like I said, it's just whenever I stream nowadays, I try to make the most out of it and make some memes, make people laugh, because like joy is the single most important thing in life.
That's a good quote.
It is so overpowered. Joy is so broken, it's crazy. A team that has fun will be infinitely more likely, I should say, infinitely more likely to perform well than a team that is depressed and angry and sad and hating, and like, you need to have joy. And that's why I don't like turning on my stream and spreading something other than joy.
Yeah.
Because I think like joy is really important as a professional. When I go on stage, I want people to look at me play and think that guy's having a good time. Joy.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not even a Nila player, but I get it. Joy. It's really important. I think, you know, the 9-to-5 work week started with the idea that having people work 12 hours a day, not as efficient as having them be happy.
Yeah.
When they're happy, they do more work in less hours.
I mean, we can have a whole different debate about that, but...
Well, it's not. I mean, I'd be happy to jump into it, but as far as I understand, being happy is really, really good.
It is pretty nice, I would say. Like, personally, I like being happy. I think everyone here would agree they like being happy, so...
It's not even a like thing. It makes your performance better.
I'll keep that in mind. I might keep that.
If you are happy doing something, you'll do it better. That is just the way it is. Now, obviously, maybe some people have the discipline to be able to produce a consistent result regardless of their emotion, but that's a skill one has to acquire.
Over time, yeah.
So over a large sample size of people, you know, millions, maybe billions, I would argue that the happier people will perform better.
So where do you think this champion is going to fit in the meta in that case? Because I don't know what she does. Like, I don't know.
Pick or ban in the current state of balance, in my opinion. You just blue side one pick it. They have to pick a champion in the solo lane. You look if it's laneable. If it's not, you send them to the other side. You send them to the other solo lane, and then they have to go ahead and counter pick 2 champions, because now you got the counter pick, the blind pick that they counter picked you with. So now you have only one bad matchup, which I don't know if the champion even has something that one would call a bad matchup, because I think she has too many tools right now.
Yeah.
So I believe that she's going to be pretty damn... Yeah, I believe she's blue side pick or ban.
Did you have fun playing it, or?
Oh, she's hella fun, bro.
Okay, that's
she's
good.
so much fun.
Because I feel like sometimes like people come in like Azir Corki so boring. But...
Yeah, she's fun. She's flashy. Like, I don't think it's a bad thing for competitive. I just think people... Just inherently, a champion existing that is pick or ban is such a... How do I say this?
Unfavorable. Like, they don't like it.
People just don't like it. Yeah. People don't like the idea that a champion can be good in every situation and can be picked always and has to be either picked or banned. And I don't know why. I don't know, man. Like,
I think it's just because like people build comfort over time. So, like junglers, for example, like most junglers are good at Lee Sin. Most of them have like a decent Nidalee, but when they have to play Sejuani and Maokai, they're like not that happy. I think it's like the concept of like.
well, I mean, I guess fans. Like, I don't know why people don't like watching
fans.
flashy champions get picked every game.
Yeah.
Like, I like it when people lock in, like, I mean, I guess every game. Oh, yeah, I get the idea. If it's every game, it's pretty boring. You know what I mean? Like, I guess it gets boring after a while, which is the real answer. Which makes sense. Okay, I take it back. You guys are right. When the champions pick are banned for 100 games out of 100, maybe it gets pretty boring.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can agree with that. But like Aurora for now, like I wouldn't mind seeing her pick or ban for 2 weeks, and then for playoffs she gets a little
Nerfed, yeah.
a bit nerfed, and then you might see her show up as a counter pick. Like for example, what they did to Skarner, like, I get it. That guy's not kind of cool. You saw Skarner every game he was open, and he was absolutely broken every game you saw him.
Really impressive.
He was the most broken champ in the game, I think, in a long time. He has 55% win rate in every role he was played. He would support jungle top, like what? He just won. Locking in Skarner was just winning, and competitive too, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, if you locked in Skarner, like 60% of the time he would just win. Which is ridiculous, by the way.
Like in pro, like that's just not normal.
Yeah, like 49% win rate is considered not bad for a blind pick. He was 60% consistently blind picked, first pick on blue, like and absolutely disgusting.
I don't even think there were any bad matchups for Skarner. Maybe like
I mean, there's a few, but like none of them outweighed how broken his ultimate was and like how broken his base damage was. Really, like he would outscale every champion in the game inside lane. You know, I remember I was talking to Serdi and he was like, I know Skarner is the most broken champ in the game because he was playing Camille when he was doing his rank 1 grind. Props to him, you know, shout out again to Serdi, he's the GOAT. And he was like, I know he's broken as fuck because I've been playing Camille every game, and he straight up stat checks me 3 items to 3 as a tank. And I was like, whoa.
3 Adam Camille is pretty fucking
3 Adam Camille on side lane gets stat checked by something? That's crazy. Like even champions like Jax can lose to Camille on side lane if you play it well.
The spells, the rotations.
Yeah, like if you dodge the E with ult and stuff like that, you can outplay them. But like he showed me a clip and I was like, dude, it wasn't even close. Like Skarner just murdered him. I was just like, wow, okay, that has to be the most broken champ in the game. He was. Yeah. That's why I picked him every game, and every time someone opens Skarner, I was laughing because, what are you doing?
Yeah. So we can go to the next slide. We have now reached the conclusion. So obviously we touched a little bit about like the whole TL matchman finals, and now we're in the LCS. TL is again the favorites. I feel like FlyQuest is viewed as a third best team. I think people hold T9 in like a little bit of a high regard. Obviously, I have to talk highly of your team, but where do you feel like you guys rank relative to the rest of the league?
I think that's fair. I think we can definitely be the best team in the league as well. I think it really depends on the draft, honestly. I think that not in a way of like draft is the most important, but it's just like drafting towards the player strength is really important. And like I think that right now, if we were going to play like Renekton and Narn matchups and stuff like that, probably not in our favor because I'm not that good in those matchups. I think Impact and Thanatos are both better than me. And I think that everyone else is like quite evenly matched across the map. So I think top lane will make a big difference in these series, and it's important for me to step up and make sure that I lead my team to victory, because I think that will hold a lot of weight. So if I can do that by avoiding those matchups and playing some of my own patented spice, I think that we can definitely be the best team. But at the same time, I definitely respect the fact that if we're playing straight meta, I think their top laners will have more impact in the game, and that would probably be the reason why those teams win.
Yeah, I mean, Impact has been so good for so long, and he's never ever really like lost that form. So it's kind of impressive to see him in contrast to Thanatos, who's new, but like those guys are both pretty good. I feel like Impact, no matter what, has a good game, and then Thanatos at times looks really comfortable, and at times, you know, it's kind of like the whole rookie, you know, sorting out like the ins and outs of competitive at the highest level. So
yeah, makes sense.
But I think he'll be good for years to come. So you mentioned how previously you struggled with issues, and recently you've taken a lot of steps to improve your life. So for people who are struggling at home, what are some things you'd recommend to help them take the first step towards getting better?
So for me personally, the first thing was accepting medication. I wasn't comfortable taking medication at first, but my therapist is a fantastic person that is very smart, and he's shown me proof, and he's proven to me basically that there are numerous studies by very reputable sources, which I can't name because I don't know. I forgot the sources, but I trust him. So my point is medication does help people. It does help you. It is going to help you in the long term if you are struggling. If you're someone that's obviously happy right now and they don't have any problems or worries, then that's not necessary. But antidepressant medication does work. For example, for me, ADHD medication works. It helps. And anti-anxiety medication, which is also something I've started taking more recently. I started it like this year, somewhere a few months ago, months ago. I'm not sure at this point. I'd have to double check. But my point is, I can say for sure that my anxiety is much more manageable. I know things that I used to do because I was consistently anxious, I don't do anymore. for example, I have like this leg shaking thing, and I
Mhm.
still do it sometimes,
Mhm.
but I don't do it nearly as often, and I can tell when I'm doing it.
Mhm.
It has given me the opportunity to be much more mindful in my life,
Mhm.
because a lot of the time I would be anxious about everything and anything.
Yeah.
I'm worried about draft. I'd get anxiety about that, and I'd just be stuck with this idea of what's going on in draft, and it'd just be in my head the whole day. It would make me less present in the moment. It's helped me a lot. Again, that's for me. I get how medicine works. I get how healthcare works. It's not always that easy. But the first thing you should do is accept that help can make it better. And I really recommend to seek help, even if the results won't be perfect regardless. It's okay. Like, really, you're just trying to help yourself, and I think helping yourself is the best you can do.
Yeah.
So, for me at least, I didn't get diagnosed with ADHD until I was 21, because I was considered to be like a very quiet and like patient, reserved kid.
Mhm.
You know, my parents were like, "There's no way," you know, like,
Mhm.
"There's no way," blah blah. And no, I got clinically diagnosed. Like,
Mhm.
I do have ADHD. I'm pretty sure.
Mhm.
And then anxiety as well. I got diagnosed with it. It took a while to get diagnosed with these things, and it kind of took me being really honest and open with my therapist about it, which was hard. It took me like a year and a half, 2 years to really open up and talk about what really, you know, what my demons look like, if you will.
Mhm. Yeah. They're not pretty.
No, they weren't.
Mhm.
And not proud of that, but I'm proud of the fact that I'm trying to do better.
Mhm.
And if anyone, you know, feels comfortable trying, I think that's the first and best thing you can do.
I can agree.
And that's it, you know. Like, you just gotta do what you can. And if you're not ready right now, that's okay. I just want to help people. I just want to help remind people that it's an option if one would want to explore it. You're obviously free to live your life as you desire. But I do think it's important that people know it's an option.
Yeah.
That's it, you know. That's all. It can help. Will it or won't it? I can't promise that. Obviously, you need to have a competent person helping you. That's why I'm extremely grateful for Bowen. He hit the nail on the head from day one for me.
Mhm.
Every time I work with him, I always feel like I'm doing better.